Continuing on with the festivities of the question and answer session, I have a shitload of questions to answer this time around, so I'm just going to jump right into these bitches because I have a lot to talk about. Next question from Mr. Final Prestige: who do you think is the greatest sports athlete of all time? This ain't an easy question to answer because you're not asking who's the greatest person at their sport. You're asking who's the greatest athlete of all time in all sports. In other words, you're comparing basketball to football to hockey and shit like that. You know, nobody's going to argue Jordan and Gretzky were the greatest of all time, but would you put either one of those two as the top athlete? You know what I'm talking about? Are they the greatest athlete of all time? And as far as I'm concerned, if I pick athlete, I want somebody with the greatest athletic ability. So my choice would be Jim Brown, the Hall of Fame running back from the Cleveland Browns, who was the greatest running back in the history of the NFL. But not only was he a great running back, in college he was also an All-American in 3 sports. He was an All-American in football, lacrosse, and track and field, and he also played basketball. So if you want to talk about athletic accomplishments, he certainly has it. But then when he came to the NFL, he was the biggest, strongest, fastest running back that nobody could tackle. I mean, it took years for people to actually pass his records that he set all those years ago. He was such a good athlete that if you took him in his prime then and put him in the NFL today, I'll guarantee you he'd still be one of the top running backs. That's how good an athlete Jim Brown was. Next up is DJ Scribbles, and he has 4 questions. First, what is your dream car, and can you say the car that you currently own? Hopefully that's not too personal. Now wait till you see this bullshit in a second, man. Now first of all, my dream car would be the McLaren F1, and the reason why I picked that car is because it was made like, what, 15, 16 years ago and shit like that, and to this day, it is still one of the top cars that has ever been produced in history. You know, the Bugatti Veyron's obviously faster and stronger and all this other bullshit. But look at how much shit you had to put in that car to make it as fast as it is. The McLaren F1 was simple, it was sleek, it was elegant. That would be my ultimate dream car. As far as my car right now, I don't own one. My better half owns the car. You know, a few years ago I had a Pontiac Grand Am and I sold the motherfucker because it was like, we only need one car. So we went with her car and she has a Ford Focus, so I used that motherfucker. Question number 2, I've already answered. Now question number 3, look at this shit. He asked question number 1. Hopefully that's not too personal. So then he asked this bullshit. So basically I'd answer, you know, it's not as big as your sister's. There, that's how you answer a question, motherfucker. What? Seriously, man, what the fuck is this? This is what you people think of? I mean, you have a chance to ask somebody a question on the internet, and this is what you fuck. Oh, I ain't gonna get into this bullshit, man. Anyway, question number 4, what is your view on Bioshock Infinite? Oddly enough, this is the game that I'm playing right now, and you can see it in the background. And I mentioned in my last question and answer session that Bioshock the original was one of the best campaigns that I've ever played. Matter of fact, it is the best campaign that I've ever played. Now, when I got into Bioshock Infinite, you know, the shock and awe of when you first visit the game, when you first play the game, is gone. And the reason why it's gone is because when you visit Rapture for that first time, there's that holy shit moment. Regardless of how cool Columbia is and regardless of how great the storyline is with the whole, you know, Comstock and shit like that, it's never going to equal that holy fuck moment you get when you first entered Rapture and you first get to realize what the storyline is and the twist and all that bullshit. Now, the sad thing is, I already had the ending of this game spoiled for me. Some fucking idiot posted up their review, whatever the fuck. Well, I don't know, they were talking about the article, and then they mentioned the ending of the fucking game, but they didn't write in the article that a spoiler was coming. So as I'm reading the motherfucker, I ended up reading the goddamn end of the game without it being forewarned ahead of time as a spoiler. So I'm like, motherfucker, man, I read this shit. Now I gotta fucking play this game, and I already know what's gonna happen, man. So it's one of those games, and I'm not gonna spoil it for anybody else. It's one of those games that you play through, you enjoy it, you get to the end, you're like, holy shit, I gotta go back and play it a second time to see all the things that I missed leading up to that. So I was like, motherfucker, so now that I'm playing this game, I sort of know what's gonna happen, and it kind of ruins the experience because obviously the ending is something that everyone talks about in Bioshock Infinite. So basically, that fucking article messed me up for this game, and I still put it behind Bioshock the original because after all, Rapture was the coolest fucking thing you could ever imagine in a video game. Next question, and this comes from someone who wants to remain anonymous, so obviously I'll grant that request. What is the one thing that pisses you off most in the Call of Duty universe? Anything from developers, publishers, communities, whatever, and the same question for the entire gaming industry. Lag. Oh man, the fucking lag. I know people are going to talk about, well, Xbox One's going to have 300,000 servers. Oh, you know, I don't give a shit. Listen, right now, the lag is unbearable. The lag compensation in Call of Duty is just fucking irritating to play. You know, I get it. Not every fucking game is going to have dedicated servers. People are going to have Wi-Fi. You're going to have shitty connections, hosts, and whatnot. I understand that. I can't get around it. But the fact is, it pisses me off. I hate when I shoot a motherfucker in the back of the head. He turns around, pops me with 2 bullets, and I'm fucking dead. Meanwhile, I entered an entire clip into his goddamn ass, and I didn't get shit. That is the one thing that infuriates me about games. Now, as far as just developers and publishers in general, lying. I mean, between Treyarch and Bethesda, I've ripped these companies assholes for lying. I can't stand when a company goes out there, they bullshit you, they expect you to buy their product, you buy their product based on their word, and then they tell you, well, that's not what we told you. Oh, well, really, it wasn't really true what we said. Or, you know, it is true, but I guess it's just your experience that you're having, and it's not really us. You know, that kind of shit pisses you the fuck off. When people lie about their product, you give them money, and they bullshit you, that's what pisses you off, and that's what pisses me off in general about any gaming studio. Next question from My Too Lethal, or Am I Too Lethal? I don't know, man. I ain't gonna pronounce that motherfucker. Anyway, he's got 3 questions. What is the game of the year? You gotta understand, we're only in May right now. We still have 7 full months of other games to be released to be able to compete with the Game of the Year category. Now, as of right now, obviously a game like Bioshock Infinite is one of the top games that was released, and regardless of when it was released, it is going to be considered a Game of the Year candidate. But we still have a whole bunch of other games that have to be released. The Last of Us hasn't been released yet. All the November games for Christmas and the holiday season haven't been released yet. So it's unfair to pick Game of the Year right now. Obviously, Bioshock Infinite is the early contender, and if the competition were to stop today, yes, it does win. But we still have 7 more months to go, and something is guaranteed to at least challenge Bioshock Infinite for Game of the Year category. Number 2, what is the most dumbest thing you ever did in your life? You know, the fact is, when I was younger, I played a lot of sports, and I injured myself a ton. And people told me how to take care of my body, but I never took that advice. I was like, oh, I'm indestructible, I won't feel it, I won't give a shit. You know, 20 fucking years later, I have arthritis almost head to toe. I'm in pain every time it rains, every time it snows, every time it's cold. And all of this shit could have been prevented had I taken care of my body the way I was supposed to when I was young. You know, I had all the advice there. People was telling me, this is what you need to do to make sure you recover from your injuries, to make sure you recover from your games. And what did I do? I ignored it. Easily the dumbest thing in my life because I'm fucking feeling that shit now. And his third and final question, look at this bullshit, man. If you were stranded on an island, there were 2 mermaids, one from the human from the waist up, one human from the waist down, you had to marry one, which one would you pick? Now, first of all, I'm stranded on an island. What the fuck point does marriage mean at that point? You know what I'm talking about? It's like, oh, we're stranded, we have to get married. No, who gives a shit? My first reaction is, how the fuck do I get off this goddamn island? I'm not worried about which one I have to marry in this motherfucker. Second thing that pisses me off, when you give me 2 options, and if I don't like either option, I always take option number 3, which is none of the above. And I know people can say, well, you can't do that. I'm like, guess what? I just fucking did. I'm not taking no 2 options if I don't like my 2 fucking options. So the fact that you're telling me I'm on this island, stranded, getting married to them does nothing for me. It's just, okay, fine, I'm married. Doesn't change a fucking thing. I'm still stranded on the goddamn island with 2 fucking mermaids. Besides, they're mermaids. They'll be in the water. If I'm down on an island, they're just gonna be swimming around like motherfuckers. I don't give a shit about them. So I don't know how you expected me to answer this stupid ass question if there was no criteria involved in the motherfucker. Next up is My Gaming is Legal, and I'm going to leave this up there for a few seconds just so you guys can read all this, and I want to just talk about this for a second. You know, there are a lot of times that I get messages like this. People who say that they enjoy my content, people who say that they try and listen to as many videos as possible for me, and normally when I get things like this, I like to always reply back with a thank you message. You know, if you took the time to send me a nice message like this, I always at least take the time to send you a thank you back, because if I know someone out there is appreciating my content, the least I can do is say thank you for at least acknowledging that my hard work pays off and that it at least entertains you for a couple of minutes. So instead of just sending the message, I decided, you know what, I might as well post it up and say thank you here in the video since I was already going to be answering the fucking questions anyway. You know what I'm talking about? Now, as far as it's 2 questions. First question, since you used to cursing and it's hard for you not to curse, at what age did you start cursing where it became a habit? Now, I don't remember the exact age, but the earliest I can remember when I got in trouble, I believe, was 4th grade. I believe I told somebody, fuck you, or something like that, or fuck you. I said something, and basically, you know, they called, you know, home, and your parents had to come get you, and you know that your kid is cursing, and everybody in my family was like, okay, and? You know, they were like, okay, big deal. He cursed. What the fuck is your problem? You know, that was the exact reaction they had. And they were like, you know, well, you shouldn't be teaching him curses because then he teaches other kids. And they're like, big fucking deal. You know, they're like, who gives a shit? It's just a fucking curse. It's not a big goddamn deal. So as far as I'm concerned, it's always been in my vocabulary. And the reason why it's always been in my vocabulary is because my family just never gave a shit about what cursing is. It was like, big deal. Somebody said shit. Is that going to ruin your fucking day? No. So who gives a fuck? So as far as when it's been a habit, it's probably been my habit. Probably it's going back as far as 4th grade. That's the earliest I can remember the motherfucker. Second question, would you ever apply to work at Infinity Ward? Now, I want to be very clear about this. You have to be realistic in what your abilities are. And my abilities are not to create video games. You know, I went to school for something else. I could actually take my degree and work at Infinity Ward, but it wouldn't be in the gaming division. It would be in a completely different division. But I could take my my background and I could easily work there. But it's not going to be as the person who creates the next Call of Duty game or whatever the fuck it is. So as far as would I apply to work there, the answer would be no, because it wouldn't be in the gaming section. Now, if Activision came along and they saw my Blueprint series and they said, you know what, this motherfucker really knows what he's talking about. What we should do is get him on the creative team or get him on the ideas team, whatever the fuck it is, and he'll be able to tell you assholes and you programmers, this is what you need to fix. Yeah, that I would consider doing. But the fact is, if I tried to apply for that position and I put in a resume or whatever the fuck, I would never get that position because that's not my background. I don't make video games. So it's not like I could just go send out a resume, apply to the motherfucker, and they say, oh yeah, you sound great, we're just gonna hire you right away. You know, if it was that easy, everybody would do it. But the fact is, my background and what I actually work in, I can work in Infinity Ward, but it's not the way that you guys would want me to work in Infinity Ward. Next question from 7503 Anthony. Will you be bringing back the TIAA? This is an asshole series to do something similar to it. Now you gotta understand, I would love to bring back that series, but the concept behind the series was to play games online where people got so pissed that they sent me personal PSN messages. That was the concept behind it. So that I could show the PSN message, and then I could show them the gameplay that happened where I embarrassed the motherfucker. The problem is, I haven't played an online game in so long that I haven't been able to get messages like this and shit. You know, I used to play Mass Effect, that was pretty easy. I used to play Call of Duty, obviously Call of Duty, everybody sends you fucking messages and shit like that. But the fact is, I haven't been playing online enough to actually get messages where I can do a video like this. Now, if I happen to play online, and somebody were to send me an online message, calling me an asshole, calling me a douchebag, whatever it is, and I had good footage of the game, yeah, I would turn around and use it and create This Is an Asshole episode 5 or 6 or whatever the fuck it is that I'm up to. But the fact is, I haven't gotten the content yet to go back and do something like this. So yes, I would love to bring it back, but the fact is I need to find content to use in the motherfucker. Next question. I don't know if that's an L in your name or an I in your name, if that's Luceni or Euseni, whatever the fuck. Like I said, guys, you gotta pronounce your names for me. Anyway, he has two questions. Firstly, have you ever been chased by the authorities or cops, and if so, for what reason? You know, I've never been chased by the cops, whether it was on foot or like a high-speed chase or shit like that. I mean, I've been stopped by the cops. I've been pulled over for, like, you know, speeding or my tail light was out, or in New York City, cops just want to bust your balls. But as far as being chased, no, I've never been chased. Secondly, you ever been in an ambulance before? And again, if so, what was the reason? Yes, I've been in an ambulance before. I was in a couple of car accidents that required an ambulance. I had a few sports injuries that required an ambulance, and also the aforementioned meningitis incident where I needed an ambulance to rush me to the hospital. Next question comes from In Your Dreams. He's played a lot of Call of Duty and he's getting bored with the motherfucker. And he asks, if Call of Duty were to do the changes in the Blueprint series, is there still a chance of it being successful? Now, you have to understand, success to Call of Duty doesn't matter what we think. Success to Call of Duty is measured by what Activision thinks. And as far as Activision's concerned, they make a shitload of money. So to them, Call of Duty is always going to be successful. I mean, they rolled out bullshit after bullshit after bullshit, and people keep buying the motherfucker. So even if they were to make my changes, yeah, we might consider it better. We might like the game better. I'd certainly go back to it if they made my changes. But in terms of it being successful, I mean, that's just us determining what we like in the motherfucker. Next question from Benjamin T. And he wants to know who's influenced me the most in my life, and if not, they could do a famous person or whatever the fuck. I'll tell you right now, my whole goal in life was to never be like anyone else. My whole goal was to always be completely 100% unique, something nobody has ever seen, somebody who's completely original. So as far as who's influenced me, the fact is everybody has influenced me to the point that I don't want to be like someone. Next question from Jim Bob. He asked about Ghost, but he also asked two questions that I will refer to. He asked about the trailer, and also, do I have any magazine subscriptions to any game-relating magazines? No, I don't have any subscriptions to the motherfucker. As far as the trailer, obviously, you know, depending on when he wrote this motherfucker, there was the first trailer with the whole masks and shit like that. I mean, that was fine. I really didn't give a shit. I mean, plenty of people made memes and made fun of the motherfucker. But as far as the actual next-gen console revealing the motherfucker, I mean, it just looked like an updated Call of Duty. I mean, their whole big thing is, oh, you have a dog now. It's like, oh, really? I have a dog in real life? You know, I mean, I wasn't impressed. I haven't been impressed with anything Call of Duty's released in the past couple years when it comes to trailers. Because obviously with the trailer, they're just going to show you sort of the best shit that you're going to see in the game. But what they don't show you is the lag. What they don't show you is the overpowered shit. What they don't show you is the imbalance in multiplayer. That's what they hide from you. That's what they kind of glance over. They don't talk about any of that crap that happens. So nothing I watch when it comes to their trailers I ever take to heart, because I always look at it as if it's bullshit. Next question's from True Sanity, and he's got a couple of questions on this motherfucker. With PlayStation 4 coming out, do you think Bethesda will finally make a game that Sony console souls can actually fucking play. No, I don't. I think Bethesda is a worthless bunch of assholes. So regardless of what they do, I wouldn't buy anything they do, even if they developed on PlayStation 4. Bethesda can go fuck themselves as far as I'm concerned. Question number 2, I've already answered. Question number 3, what the fuck is wrong with Square Enix these days? As far as Square Enix, oh man, they got so many fucking issues over there. But you know, it's really 2 main problems that they have. Over in Japan, they like to create new engines for every single new game. You know, unlike Western game developers, you know, people in Canada and the United States, they share engines. We share engines on this side of the hemisphere, whether it's the Frostbite engine, whether it's the Unreal engine, it doesn't matter. They all borrow each other's engines. Over in Japan, they always like to create a brand new engine for every single game. So what that does is that slows down production. Instead of putting out a game every 2 years, they're putting out games every 4 years, every 5 years. And that puts them so far behind the competition that they just can't put out enough volume for people to stay interested in their games. The second problem that Square Enix has is they continue this whole crystals and life form and Gaia bullshit. Oh my god, just give me a bad guy I could fight, motherfucker. You know, like Mass Effect, it has a bad guy you can fight. Skyrim has a bad guy you can fight. All their RPGs that they put out is basically, oh, you know, this bad guy wants crystals and the power of life, and he wants this power and that power. Oh, shut the fuck up. Just give me a bad guy I can fight, and let me go out there and kick his ass. I don't want to worry about crystals and all this bullshit. I don't want to worry about him trying to suck the life out of the universe because he wants the power or something. Oh man, come on with this bullshit. Square Enix goes off the deep end when it comes to the plots, and then on top of that, they throw in these annoying anime characters that look like they should be raped by tentacle monsters and shit like that. It's just not translating into good RPGs anymore because you have all these Western RPGs that come up with a concise story that doesn't have all the bullshit of these old Japanese anime games. Next question, and this motherfucker changed his goddamn name and shit, but I know him as ExEX Pro Rangers and all these other X's, as you can see in this motherfucker. Anyway, he's got 4 questions. Throughout your gaming aspect of life, what has been the funniest and best memory? You know, when I was younger, my best friend used to live next door, and he used to come over all the time, and we used to play sports games non-stop. And the one sports game that we always played was NHL. And the reason why we played NHL was because it was one of the few games you could play together on the same team. You know, in baseball, it was hard to play because it's always pitcher versus batter in almost every single game mechanic of the game. So you had to play almost on other teams. In football, whoever was the quarterback, you were always going to be like the most important character. So yeah, you could take a running back, you could take a wide receiver, but it was always better to be quarterback versus defense. In hockey, you can have 2 people playing on the same team, and that was some of the earliest co-op where you just got the second controller, one person was the center, one person was the wing, and we used to fuck shit up all the time. I mean, when they added one-timers to the game, oh my god, we tore ass through that game. I mean, basically, we had the perfect setup every single time, and we went in hockey games like 35-0 and shit like that. So that was my best memory of video gaming, playing with my best friend, learning how to play together co-op in sports, because that shit was fucking hysterical. Number 2, have you had any regrets starting up with a YouTube channel? Absolutely not, I have no regrets. Number 3, what is your number 1 hate? Now you gotta understand, hate is a strong word. Hate means you are like filled with rage to the point that you can't stand something. I don't let things get to me to the point that I hate them. There are things that I don't like. There are things that I can't stand. Now, obviously, something like ignorance. I don't like ignorance. I don't like racism, sexism, things like that. Anything that involves ignorance, I just don't like in general. But as far as things that I hate, there's nothing that I truly hate to the point that I'm like filled with blood rage and shit like that. And the final question, could you do a blueprint video on YouTube's layout? Listen, man, I can't even draw stick figures, let alone a fucking layout. You know, I know a lot of people don't like this layout and shit like that, but you know what? YouTube's always changing the motherfucker. You just gotta get used to it. Next question from Only by Sage. If you weren't J Loco on YouTube, what YouTuber would you want to be? I wouldn't want to be anybody. I mean, that's just the reality. I am who the fuck I am. I don't want to be anybody else. I don't want anybody else's subscribers and shit like that. I'm unique. Much like before that question asked who's influenced you the most, it's the same answer. I do not want to be like anything else. Next question from Wavy213. When you're not working or gaming, do you watch TV? And if so, what do you think about shows that are on today? I used to be a big TV buff. I used to watch a lot of TV shows, but nowadays I just don't have as much time as I used to. You know, there are 4 shows that I do watch every week. I watch The Person of Interest, which is one that you mentioned, Law & Order, The Following, which I think should be fucking canceled, and also watch Hannibal, which is really fucking good. And I know there are tons of good shows that are on cable TV, like you mentioned, Breaking Bad, obviously Game of Thrones on HBO and shit like that. That's one of the best shows. Dexter and shit, Mad Men. And years ago, I got into Lost. I used to love watching Lost every single week. But over time, it's like you just don't have the time to watch all the TV shows that you want to watch. So I try to stick to just watching a few new shows every year. And sometimes the shows are good, sometimes the shows are bad, but those are the only 4 that I really watched this year. Next question from the Mad Pack X. Have you ever considered doing movie reviews and rants on your channel? No. And this one will never happen for the simple fact that I don't go out and watch movies. I'm not lying about that either, man. I'm not really interested in going to a fucking movie theater, spending $13 on a ticket, and then having to walk out and feel pissed off that I had to watch that stupid shit, man. So as far as I'm concerned, I will never do movie rants. I don't watch enough movies to rant about the motherfuckers. I wait till they come on cable. I wait till my friends buy the Blu-ray or whatever the fuck, and I borrow that shit, but I will never do movie rants on my channel. Next question from Hawk525. He wants to know, what do I think of the concept of DLC overall in this day and age? Is it a great idea or another bullshit scheme to make more money? You know, if DLC is done right, it's a good purchase. If DLC is done the right way, yes, I think it's a good thing. However, companies now use it as a money grab, like you said today. Things like first day DLC or pay to win, you know, where you pay for a perk or you pay for a gun and you have an advantage over people who don't pay for it. That's bullshit, man. You know, the way DLC should work is it should add content to the game that wasn't on the disc and that is unique. Don't give me this bullshit of, oh, we're gonna charge you $15 for 5 fucking maps in Call of Duty. That's a bunch of crap. Don't give me this shit, oh, we're gonna add a new fucking mission that's just like every other mission on the disc that you're playing in the campaign. That's fucking bullshit. DLC should be a unique experience. It should be something on its own that either wasn't able to put on the disc or a new version of content that is completely different from what you already had. People will pay for good DLC. People will pay for shit that is worth something. But if you just keep rolling out crap, whether you're Activision, Mass Effect, Skyrim, Uncharted, where you gotta pay for fucking perks to actually be better in the goddamn game, give me a break with that shit. If I want to pay for bullshit, then what you can do is go out, create a hat made out of a steaming pile of cow shit, and there, now I've officially paid for bullshit. Next question from ExEX XXX and all that other good shit. Have you ever visited another country, and if not, where do you want to visit? I visited plenty of countries. I go on vacations at least once a year. I visited everywhere from Canada to the Caribbean to Europe to Asia. So I've been plenty of places. I've seen plenty of countries. And there are still plenty of countries on my list that I want to go to and visit in this motherfucker. I'm not going to sit here and list it because everyone's going to be like, oh, what country have you visited? What country have you not visited? I visited plenty of places. We'll just say that. Next question. This comes from KSam96 Trini. How did you become so great on YouTube? Was it a commentary? Now you gotta understand, I'm only a 15,000, 16,000 subscriber channel and shit like that. You know, I'm flattered that you feel that I'm great on YouTube, but I'm sure if you went to someone else's channel, their subscribers will tell you that that channel is the greatest channel on YouTube. So it's just a matter of opinion as far as being great and shit like that. You know, was it a commentary? I mean, like I mentioned before, my first break was with Never CC and my Scarface commentary, but that didn't like all of a sudden shoot up my subscriber videos and shit like that. You know, I've been on a lot of community channels that have helped my channel grow. You know, I've been on Yoush. I actually had a video on Machinima I did a commentary for. I've been on Straight Up Knives plenty of times. I was on a number of community channels where I just did a couple of commentaries over countdowns and shit like that. But I'm not going to sit here and say, oh yeah, I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread on YouTube. No, man, I'm flattered that you think that way, but I'm sure if you go to other channels, other subscribers will feel that way about the channels that they're subscribed to. Next question from 420 Bubblegum. Were you ever huge into sneakers growing up with Jordans and Air Force Ones and all that crap? I'll tell you that right now. I wasn't big into sneakers. I never have. I never will. I did have a pair of Jordans, and the only reason I had it is because they looked good back in the day. You know, I don't focus on the name on the sneaker. I focus on the look of the sneaker and, of course, the price. You know, I'm not going to spend an absorbent amount of money on fucking sneakers and shit like that. So, yeah, I had my Jordans. I think I had maybe like 2 or 3 generations of Jordans or some shit like that. But as soon as they got ugly, I stopped buying them. As soon as they became like $250, I stopped buying the motherfuckers. So I've never really been huge into sneakers. Next question. Notice he actually added a pronunciation of his name, Tanvis. So now I know how to actually say the motherfucker's name. Do you know any of your online friends in real life? Absolutely. I mean, a good portion of my friends have bought their PlayStations and do play PlayStation. So yes, I know plenty of my real life friends online. The final question for part 2 is a fucking wall of text. I mean, look at this shit, man. This guy Athena Cena wants to know everything about me since I've been like fucking 1 years old. So I'm going to try and go through these as quickly as possible because I don't want to spend too much time on this shit. What is your biggest fear? You know, I don't have any phobias, arachnophobia, agoraphobia, claustrophobia. I have concerns like anybody else, health, money, finance, and shit like that. But as far as fears, I don't really have any fears. Are you open to ideas about new series and maybe continuations of old ones? Yes and no. I mean, people can suggest things, but if I see no reason to add it, I certainly won't. You know, if somebody said this was a good old series, would you continue it? I might consider it based on how many views it got. But if somebody were to say, hey, we should go do a trolling series, I'd be like, no, fuck off. Get out of here with that stupid shit. Question number 3, I've already answered. Question number 4, if you could pick 2 games that could have the best crossover, which would you pick? I don't quite know what you mean by crossover, but the best thing I can think of is taking like Mass Effect 3 co-op and putting that into an MMO style game, you know, with all the different worlds and aliens and shit like that. That'd probably be the best crossover I could think of. Have you ever been anywhere besides New York? Of course, I've been on plenty of vacations. What is the most illegal thing you've ever done? You know, I'm a pretty straight arrow, so the most illegal thing that I've ever done, believe it or not, is basically stealing music off of Napster and Limelight. You know, I've never done anything to get arrested, so as far as illegal, it's just really stealing music. What is the nicest thing anyone's ever done for you? Back when I was applying for college, I actually submitted my application late because I was going to be going on an interview with the actual administrators. And when they noticed I hadn't submitted my application, it was because, oh yeah, I was going to give it to you guys. And they said, no, it had to be in by a certain date. So the lady, after the interview, liked me so much, she actually took my application and wrote down that she received it and she forgot to actually submit it. So she backdated it to a day before the application was due and said that it was her fault that I didn't get my application in on time. That was one of the nicest things anyone's ever done for me that allowed me to get into the college of my choice. What is your favorite curse word? Motherfuckers, anything new coming to your channel soon? Yes, you just have to wait to see it. What is your favorite car brand? I really don't have a favorite car brand. I mean, I said the McLaren F1 was my favorite car, but as far as, you know, Ferrari, BMW, Toyota, car brands really don't matter to me. When have you considered yourself lucky? So, you know, when I was a teenager, I went mountain biking and I had an accident where I slid off the side of the trail and I fell down about a 200-foot ravine, just falling and falling and falling, couldn't stop, bumping everything you could possibly imagine. I needed to be airlifted out of there to give you an idea of how deep and how steep this ravine was. When I got to the hospital, all I had was a couple of broken bones and of course some bumps and scratches and shit like that. But if you were to see the fall, most of the doctors said there is no way in hell anybody could have survived that, let alone with just a couple of bumps and bruises that I had. So that was probably the luckiest thing I've ever had. Have you ever watched a video that was submitted for the Hip-Fi commentary and just said nope? Yeah, as a matter of fact, there was one on my channel from Ford. Ford sent in that bullshit where he was just typing away a message on Xbox, and I'm watching this shit, I'm like, what the fuck is this crap? I mean, he literally just sat down and started writing an Xbox message or whatever the fuck. So, midway through, I cut the video out. He had actually sent the second video thinking that that one wouldn't be allowed. So, basically, I said, oh no, I'm not doing this video because it was so fucking stupid. There was no gameplay, bottom line. I've also turned away videos of people actually recording with a camera, you know, like an iPhone or a Sony Handycam or some shit like that. So, if they're sitting there recording with a camera instead of a device, I turn those away. And then there was another video. It took me so long to download. So when I finally opened it, I looked at the bottom and the time was barely moving. The whole video was 2 hours. The dude basically sat down, played almost a whole entire video game, recorded it, sent it in. When I returned it back to him, I said, I'm not doing a 2-hour video. He never sent me a return video, so it's like, oh, fuck, I'm not going to worry about that shit. So yes, I have said no to a couple of Hip-Fire commentaries. Have you ever met a YouTuber in person? No, I haven't. Would you consider Epic Pineapple to be part of your greatest hits in the Hip-Fire commentary series? I'm sure you guys do. You know, obviously, I go by views and what people like, and Epic Pineapple's video, you know, the whole meltdown with the earthquake survival video. Yes, that's one of the most viewed videos. It's one of the most liked videos on my channel, so I'd probably have to consider that one of the greatest hits. Anyway, that's it for part 2 of this video. I have one more video to go. So as always, rate, comment, subscribe, and all that good shit. And I'll see you in the final series to the question and answer session.
Come on. Everything's gonna be okay. Will you just turn around and talk to me and we can...